kids charity for all of those sad children with cancer of the ass.
It's like it was something like, I don't give a shit if it's kids with ass cancer.
That's terrible.
I know.
Oh my lord.
What the fuck was that?
You were asking the wrong person. I bet Google would know. Google's been advertising their Google voice search capability prowess. Like, hey Google, how strong is the wind in San Francisco right now? And it like tells you the wind is 54 miles per hour. It's like, that's way too much information. Hey Google.
Google Mail has Gmail has a new feature. You can unsend. You've got like 35 seconds to unsend an email.
That's been around for a while, and I'm still
it's being released like today.
No, it's literally been around since like 3 April Fools ago, and it was originally announced on April Fools, like April Fool's Day 2012 or 2013 or something, that you could unsend email just in case. And if it's so, I don't know if it's something that kind of like the mini arcade console for the iPad that was an April Fool's joke that actually became a product like a year later. If Google just realized, wow, people really liked this April Fool's joke idea, so then they actually are making it. I don't know. But I've been hearing about that feature for many years. I'd be curious to know if it is indeed actually going to become a thing, or if it's what's referred to as vaporware. I like that term.
Vaporware?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's midnight o'clock. I'll tell you all about vaporware as soon as we start the show.
Alright, cool.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
Alright. Fucking A. Ooh. Error.
Ooh.
Error. Login failed. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Welcome back, fourth host.
Error. Login failed. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, Jesus Christ. Did they, like, change the Radio Valencia shit?
I don't know.
Error. Login failed. Thanks a lot, Chaz. Cocksucker.
It's always something new. It's some new way of fucking with us.
Alright, here we go. Radio Valencia. Alright. I don't give a shit about the podcast page. Oh, God damn it.
Oh, I have a call.
The fuck was that?
Oh, Lord.
We're 2 minutes into our show.
No, we're not,
and we're not having a show.
There is absolutely...
Can't log in, huh?
Nope, it's giving me an error.
Is it, like, not connecting to the server, or...?
Yeah, it's not connecting to the remote Robo DJ thing or something. Let me see. Son of a bitch. Steve Courtney, did you get the welcome to Radio Valencia introductory form letter? Fill in social media. Nice cast is what I need. Stuff on the homepage. Monitor robot DJ. Start remote broadcast. Remote broadcast control panel. IP address. All right. 12312. No user ID. Shoutcast. Radio Valencia. Everything look, unless they've changed something and didn't tell us.
Let me check my email.
I'm gonna check Radio Valencia right now and see if
it worked. I mean, I'm listening to whatchamacallit, Robo DJ.
So right now Radio Valencia is playing absolutely nothing.
No, it's not. Yeah, it is. I'm listening to it.
What do you hear? Because I hear nothing.
It's either us or something else.
I'm listening to us, our conversation.
Oh, excellent.
So we're on the air.
Yes, we're on the air.
Well, then, Jesus Christ.
Play the music.
Time to play the bumper music.
Go ahead.
All right. 6 minutes down the drain.
We've been
Here we
on the
go.
time.
We hope everybody enjoyed the behind-the-scenes look at Radio Valencia presents Technical Difficulties by the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. We now return to our regularly scheduled program, the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. Hit the bumper music! Welcome to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast, coming to you live on Radio Valencia and YouTube and 87.9 FM in the San Francisco Bay Area and from my garage, Chaz's living room, and Robinson's sexual dungeon. We appreciate you sticking around for the last 6 minutes while we figured out what the hell was going on.
And we're on air the entire time.
Well, I don't know. It's a little bit frightening when you start the broadcast and you get big red letters on the broadcaster that says, "Error, cannot log in, attempting re-login in 10, 9, 8. And then you're going, oh, goodness gracious. For those of you that aren't aware, Chaz, about 5 minutes ago said, "Hey, I wonder what our good friend Technical Difficulties is going to throw at us this week." And then, of course, as soon as I try to start the broadcast, I get an error I've never seen before. And then Robinson's listening to the Radio Valencia stream and can hear us noodling around and me having a mini panic attack, but is distracted doing something else, so it doesn't tell me he can hear this for a little while until I realize
Well, wait.
that we are on the air.
When I was listening to it, I didn't hear us. I heard the Robo DJ.
Robo
which is
DJ.
the music that plays when there's no one.
Robo DJ.
Yeah.
Really?
It's the music
You
that
heard
plays
that?
when no one's. Yeah.
That's weird, because here's the thing. If we decided not to do a show, it is supposed to play the loaded up episode of the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast that I have set up as our fallback, so that if for some reason we got...
You have to reprogram that every week, you know.
No, I don't. It's
You
just
sure?
in a Dropbox folder.
Oh, that doesn't mean anything. You have to send Ferrara an email saying, put it on. That's what he told me.
Well, so Ferrara told me that as long as it's labeled this way, if we don't break into the broadcast manually, it will play that file. And that happened to us a couple of months ago. I heard it start that file and was like, oh crap. And I had to like click another button to break into the broadcast stream. So one of these days we will probably know how to do this. And it will be during our last episode on Radio Valencia.
Mm-hmm.
Where we'll have no technical difficulties whatsoever, and then we'll be off the air forever.
Aww.
All right. Well, I now my train of thought is gone. But we were originally talking about something, Chaz, and I was going to tell you what the... Oh! I remember.
Vaporware.
Vaporware, right? Not to be confused with a vaporizer. Vaporware is in the technical world, in the technology world, vaporware is something that is continuously talked about, typically for months and years, that it is something that is coming out that never sees the light of day. So a good example of vaporware would be
A 3D phone.
Yeah, like an iPhone with a laser keyboard that shoots out the bottom and a projector that, there's this YouTube video that every year, right before the new iPhone is announced, every year this YouTube video makes the rounds. And it's a relatively realistic CGI mock-up of an iPhone that has this laser projector that projects a keyboard onto your desktop or your flat surface that you can use as a keyboard to type on. And it has like a projector that projects the image from the screen onto the wall in front of you. And it's totally lame, but people will literally come up to me, complete strangers, knowing what I do, and tell me about this awesome new iPhone that's coming out. And so that might be, vaporware. I can't think of any other great examples, but
there's another phone that you can set it down and allegedly a 3D image pops up like a hologram.
Hologram. That was going to be the next, like, hologram video monitors, right? Yeah. Why would we need that? That sounds stupid. Touchscreen laptops are not vaporware. Those exist, but they're stupid. They don't make any sense to me. Why do you need a touchscreen on a laptop? You have a keyboard and a trackpad. Why do you need to touch the screen? It gets fingerprints all over it. It looks like shit.
So you can expand the screen quickly?
I guess.
I have one and I use it all the time.
Well, it's more like forego. If you have an operating system that has like some convenient touch elements, fine. But like they had to redesign Windows to be touch friendly, and when they had Windows touchscreen devices that ran just regular Windows, it was awful. Like you're trying to push that tiny little X or that tiny little start button and trying to control it like you would with a mouse but with your finger, and then if you're trying to work on a touchscreen computer for hours at a time, your arm is exhausted from reaching up and pointing and stuff. So I don't know. This is the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast where we talk about vaporware, technology, and sometimes, and quite often, herbal tea. We do enjoy discussing tea.
Or kombucha.
Kombucha tea as well. Fermented teas. But I normally start the show by telling everybody that I am your host. And I am here with my very good friends, Robinson and Chaz. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
How was your week, Chaz?
It was awesome. Went really good today. I spent bashing the tile out of my bathroom and going and shopping for all new tile. We're gonna redo my shower, and it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Are you going to tile the shower area? Or are you gonna?
Yes, I am.
Really? So you're gonna do like a full-on walk-in shower?
Yep. We're gonna do like a huge accent, like bar all the way across it. It's gonna look gorgeous.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice. What about you, Robinson? How was your week?
My week was pretty good. I've been really busy working on a lot of things. The cosmetic line or the skincare products for Vietnam, and just doing some soundproofing.
Nice. Excellent. Yeah. Today.
Got a car.
You got a car?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
I'm picking it up Tuesday.
Is it to replace the van that you love so much?
I still have the van.
All right.
It's just it's a 2010 Volkswagen GTI that my friend Ben gave me.
Must be nice. Nice friend.
Yeah. It's only got 2,000 miles on it.
Did it go to prison or something?
Yeah, 2,000. No. It's been sitting in his garage for like 4 years, and he can't get his motorcycles out.
Wow.
So, yeah,
so for those that don't know, this is commonplace in Robinson's life. He tends to find himself in the right place at the absolute right time to very consistently get free shit from people just because he's like within the stone's throw of this person making a decision to give something away. And he has acquired some of the coolest stuff from people who just were like, "Hey, Robinson, yeah? Do you want this thing for free? Sure. Okay, there you go. Here's a, $6,000 piece of equipment. Here you have it. Here's a $17,000 car. Go ahead and have it." Okay. This is Robinson's life. I don't know how he gets so lucky.
I manifest them.
I know you do.
It's the secret.
It must be either that or it's there. Maybe he's threatening them. I don't know. Yeah. You know that? Hey, you know that that Volkswagen in your garage there? Yeah, I noticed you never drive it. Yeah. You should give it to me. Why would I do that? No,
I was breaking your face.
No, you see, I wasn't asking, all right? I was making a subtle suggestion. You should give it to me. Well, I mean, I'll sell it to you. Yeah, I didn't say sell. I said you should give it to me, if you know what I mean. Well, why would I do that? Well, because it would be the right thing to do for your own.
Hey, I have a quick question.
A phrase comes to mind: self-preservation. familiar with that phrase, eh?
I'm looking at my screen here and I see you and Chaz, but my image isn't coming up.
Yeah, your
Mm,
image looks beautiful to me.
I see you.
Can you see me?
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Okay. I can't
So,
see myself. I usually have my own picture up there as a little thing to click on, but it's not there tonight.
huh? I
Okay.
when wh- what I love about Google Hangouts, and I don't know if other platforms do this, but I love that it auto camera switches between the person who's speaking.
You
It's
know,
very cool.
if you just like on my phone, if I just push on one of it, I can just watch that person the
Oh,
entire
really?
time.
Yeah,
Because
me too.
what happens every time after the break that we have,
Hmm.
your camera, Mike, it's just this blank green screen, and then when someone else starts talking, I can see you again at the bottom here.
I wonder if it
So
like goes into some sort of sleep standby or something.
I don't know, but what I do is I just click on myself. So I'm watching myself the entire time, and you guys are at the bottom here. But that way, it never blanks out.
Oh, it's so it's not narcissism.
No.
It's by necessity.
Yes.
Understood. Understood.
Hmm.
All right. So today was my lovely wife's birthday,
Hmm.
and what I think I enjoy very much is that she's not one of those women who has a 27th birthday every year. Uh, oh, it's your birthday. How old are you? I'm 27. Really? Pretty sure you've been 27 for the last 6 years. No, I'm 27. And I don't look a day over 24. Right? That's not her,
Hmm.
because that's obnoxious. So,
Yeah.
so we celebrated her birthday today, and it was great because we celebrated it like all day long. Right? First thing in the morning, me and the boys made sure she Rachel's the kind of person that I envy so much because she can fall asleep. Boom, lights out. Right? You turn the lights off. She lays down. She's sleeping within 5-10 minutes. Right? And not like Robinson where he falls asleep while he's operating heavy machinery or mid coitus. He's like narcoleptic episode. Right?
Back in 5.
Yeah, and the girl's like, "Ooh, what the fuck?" Right? But she can, if she gets ready to take a nap or fall asleep, she can fall asleep instantly. So what's great is she sleeps like a dead person. Also,
Yeah.
she sleeps hard. So last night after she fell asleep, I was able to sneak some of the pre-prepared things that we had done. Like I did something for the first time ever. I arranged my own bouquet of flowers. I'd never done this before. Normally you buy the pre-made ones, but they had a bunch of different elements at the flower place that you could buy individually. And so I bought like 5 or 6 different elements and put them all together. And then I had to hide them in my son's room so she wouldn't see them. I couldn't put them in the garage because it's 150 degrees outside. So I had to keep them in the house. And so I set them up. So she got to wake up first thing in the morning, wakes up to some birthday cards and some flowers. And then we went to breakfast and then got home. And then I secretly set up some gifts on the table downstairs. So when she got home, she had some gifts. And then she went upstairs and took a nap. We watched a movie. She fell asleep again. It was great. And so then after that, we went to dinner. And then when we got home, I had some surprise her favorite pie. So we really celebrated her birthday from like 8 a.m. all the way to like 10 p.m. until she went to bed. So it was a nice day, and the kids were relatively well behaved. So that's always good. And then we had a nasty dust storm roll
Yep.
through. Were you
Yep.
part of that, Chaz?
I got hit by it first before you
Oh,
all
that's
did.
probably right.
Hmm.
So it rolled through, and then we went out driving in it, and there was all kinds of crazy stuff on the freeway. And you ever see a cop do a traffic break on the freeway?
No.
So
Oh wait,
you,
like
Robinson?
going back and
Yeah,
forth
oh yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like
Yep.
weave really fast back and forth, make the traffic behind the cop stop. Thankfully, the cop started doing it. I thought the cop was about to pull me over for some reason because it got behind me, turned its lights on, and I'm like, son of a bitch. Right? What did I do? I didn't do anything. And then he starts swerving, and I'm like, oh, he's not pulling me over. He's stopping all the traffic behind me. Thank God. I can keep going forward. It was awesome. But the wind was insane.
Mm-hmm.
First monsoon type
Storm of the year.
of the year. Those are very exciting, Robinson. The weather changes dramatically in late June around here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I saw
So-
pictures of last year's.
Yeah,
It's very dramatic.
it can be. There's like lightning and thunder every single night.
Gorgeous sunsets though. Makes for
Very
awesome
nice.
sunsets.
Great sunsets, thunderstorms that bring torrential rain and flooding, and lots of fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But Robinson lives in the San Francisco Bay Area, so he doesn't get those kinds of storms. He gets
Fog.
freaking earthquake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I'd rather have heat.
You see that movie San Andreas, Robinson?
What's it called?
San Andreas.
I have
Just-
not seen San Andreas. No.
In the movie theaters right now.
Okay.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is
Yes.
the main character, and actually, it was a pretty good film. It was a good like action thriller, natural disaster flick, and the CGI that they used to destroy San Francisco was pretty amazing. It's very, very cool looking, and it kind of makes you wonder when, not if, but when those tectonic plates decide they're going to shift dramatically, that whole spine of California will just explode. Because you have the Hayward Fault that runs through that body piercing shop that Eric used to work at. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like you could actually see the movement of the sidewalk over time. It moves like a couple millimeters a year. And you could see where the city would come out and have to fill in gaps in the road. So you could see the original sidewalk that was originally built, 40 years ago like this, butted together to now they've filled it in, and like it has shifted, and the original sidewalk is like feet away from where it used to be. And houses in that area that, like, have literally been ripped in half from being on this fault line. And it's frightening. And they say that when the Hayward Fault goes, that it'll be massive, and it will absolutely trigger the San Andreas Fault to go big time. Isn't there a third fault line in that area too, Robinson?
I have no idea.
He doesn't care. He figures,
No.
he
I'll be in Vietnam when that happens.
he's on his way out anyway.
Mhm.
You get a freaking tsunami.
Right, you'll get the tsunami from the San Francisco earthquake while you're in Vietnam, Robinson.
Yeah.
That's all right. Bangladesh is underwater anyway now, thanks to climate change.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Probably where it should be.
well, you said it, not me. When I was in school, there was a chef instructor. He big fat guy, obviously, and he was like the. In school it was referred to as garde manger, right? It was the, pretty fruit trays and cheese and meat plates of fancy decorative, mirrored trays of beautiful you know, spreads of stuff. It wasn't like meals so much. This instructor taught you how
Like
to
snack platters?
like a platter, right? And in America, it would be a snack platter of
Cheese
Ritz
and
crackers and Kraft singles. But in other countries where they eat real food, it would be delicious meats and cheeses and or fruits and berries and things like that you have to it's like the people that create these intricate designs out of melons and shit like that, right? This was the class, and it was an incredibly wasteful class because a class of 50 people isn't going to eat 25 trays of meat and cheese in one evening. So it would mostly get thrown away at the end of the night. And I would try to steal as much of it as I could to give to homeless people in San Francisco on my way home.
You're so nice.
It was not allowed because the last thing the school wanted was to be sued by a homeless person for eating bad food that came from their school. So technically speaking, we were supposed to throw it away. But it was funny because every time that this chef instructor would like scream at a student for making an ugly looking platter of something, the way he would make you feel bad was he would take your platter and he would, make sure you knew that it was shit, and then he would dump it out into a trash can. And all he would say, he'd look at it with this disgusted look on his face, like, you call yourself a student chef, you piece of garbage. I'm tilting this into a garbage can. But all he would say, the one thing he would say when he would dump this tray into a trash can and make you feel like crap, he would shout at you one word, Bangladesh! And he would dump it in the trash can. And when I asked him one day, why do you say Bangladesh? He says, because it's going into the garbage can, and that's where Bangladeshis get their food from.
Oh my god.
And I'm like, oh my lord, what is the matter with you, big fat American guy? Bangladesh! So every time now I say it. I say it with my kids, like when they're wasting food and I have to throw a bunch of food away in the trash can. I say Bangladesh and I throw it in the trash can.
What's a fun word to say, anyway?
It is a fun word to say. Lots of syllables.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of consonants.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And it's got the word bang in it. Like
Bang.
That's right. That's all. Anytime you can use the word bang with
Or the
children.
word cock.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
So, I figured we
Sober
should.
happy hour.
I figured we should talk about something sober happy hour related. And Chaz had a great idea for a subject this evening. Want to tell us what it is, Chaz?
Well, you have the idea for like religion and stuff like that, but I kind of wanted to like give harken back to our discussion when we had about like the alternative addictions and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I found a article in, of all things, Russia Today, RT. I love RT. They're the most awesome news thing ever. Anyway, so what they were talking about is how, I guess you could say, problem porn consumption.
Yes.
They can't call it an addiction because what they did was they would they did like EEGs, electroencephalograms, like to measure brain waves and all that stuff. And when these folks who had this problem porn consumption would see, like, erotic images and things like that, their brain waves actually slowed down.
Well, yeah. They become a caveman.
Because
Well,
all blood is leaving their brain.
No, these were the brain waves. This was the electrical, like all that other stuff that when people who are, like, let's say, addicted to food or addicted to anything else would see a picture of that thing that they were addicted to, their brain patterns would like speed up. You know,
Right. So
it would like totally stimulate them and sensitize them. But with and this was with men and women that they did. It
now these
slowed
were,
it down. Go
correct
ahead.
me if I'm wrong, these were self-proclaimed
Hmm.
porn addicts, so to speak,
Well,
right? People that they judged
mm,
themselves as having a porn addiction,
yeah,
right?
and the way that they self-identified was that yeah, it was causing problems in their lives.
Yeah.
And but insofar as addiction, in the same way that we see addictions with other things, it's not the same.
Right. Well, and what so just to clarify a little bit, they did have done studies on the brains of addicts. I'm
Hmm.
sure thousands of studies. And
Yep.
some of those studies, they have hooked people up to the EEG, and they would take a cocaine addict and they would, show them images, control
Hmm.
images, and then
Hmm.
images that would somehow, those images were designed to stimulate
Yep.
them into, the thinking about that substance that they're addicted to. And in the people, the heroin addict would see something that would remind them of heroin, or maybe they saw somebody using heroin, and the EEG would light up, right? They would see brain
Hmm.
activity that would start to speed up and the lights would go off or whatever.
Hmm.
So the idea was, for somebody who is addicted to pornography, if this is truly an addiction, that it should stimulate those same parts of the brain in a similar way. And what
Hmm.
they were able to determine definitively was that people who said that they were self-professed addicted to pornography would see pornographic images, which should, in theory, trigger that, addiction pattern in the brain, and it did not do that, right?
Yep. That's correct.
Okay.
So that being said, the outcome of this study was what?
Basically, that it's it's far more psychological than the scientific kind of explanation that would categorize it as having the same mechanism or being based in the same biological function as addictions to other things. Like even
Well,
like with gambling addiction, I think they did the same thing where they
yes.
showed like, pictures of slot machines in Vegas and all this other stuff with gambling addicts. It did the same thing as it did like with the substance abuse.
Hmm.
But the porn part was very specifically exactly the opposite. So they said that yeah, like problem usage, where it causes that disruptions in lives. That's absolutely yeah. But insofar as being an addiction, like an addiction to anything else, it's not.
Well, and so it makes me wonder, why why is it important to differentiate the porn addiction
Well,
from a chemical addiction? And what I came up with, and this is
well,
just my own
I
personal
got
opinion,
one
is
theory. Yeah.
treatment, right? If you're going to
There
try
you
to
go.
help, right, if you're going to try to help somebody who's struggling with this, you're not going to be able to approach it the same way as somebody with a different type of an addiction, that whose brain is stimulated in the same way, because obviously the treatment isn't going to work. It at least theoretically, right, from a scientific
Yep.
perspective, if my
Hmm.
brain is reacting opposite, then the same treatments may potentially not work at all.
Exactly. And I mean that's pretty much exactly what the whole point is to, of the study is to do is to find, okay, we can't approach this the same way as we would any other addict.
Right.
This has to be there. We haven't found one real much yet. I mean, it is just starting out, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's all about treatment. That's where the real uh, payoff from this kind of study will happen is in the treatment, because again, just approaching it like you'd approach anything else, like you'd approach gambling addiction, shopping addiction, or all these other things, it's not going to be the same.
Yep, and they're still not sure that classifying it as an addiction would even be appropriate, and I'm
Exactly.
inclined to agree.
Hmm.
And I wonder, this is something that popped into my mind. So, sex as a visceral thing is, I mean, it's primordial in the sense that we as beings, as living creatures, as animals,
Hmm.
are designed to reproduce. And so I wonder if the stimulation of the brain, because a lot of addiction, at least as far as I'm aware, addiction is triggering that pleasure center, that reward center of the brain. But sex as something that we do as an instinct to reproduce, I wonder if that's something so deeply programmed in our brains that we are just inherently, even just as far as DNA goes in the programming of the way that we function, if we view a sexual image and it triggers our brain differently than potentially anything else that we might be exposed to because of that, primal instinct to reproduce.
Well,
I don't know. It's just a
here's,
theory.
and I don't know if the study went into this, but again, this was done specifically on folks who said they had problem porn consumption.
Yeah.
I don't know if they did it if they had like a control group, that just saw it, because what would be interesting is to have people who were, who professed, no, I don't have a porn problem, but I am a sex addict.
Or
And then
you
show
even
them
take
the
it
same
further.
exact image.
Well, and what if you were to show the same images to a group of people who were like anti-pornography, that were disturbed by or disgusted by or uninterested in pornography?
I guarantee you it'd probably be different.
You think
And
so?
I do. I honestly think it would, because
I
people,
don't.
You don't think so?
Well,
in other words, if you're going to see something and it invokes an emotional, like a disgust.
Yeah, but I think that's bullshit.
That's a whole different brain pattern.
But I think it's bullshit. Like, I honestly think, and again, this is just my opinion, and I could be so wrong, but I think that it is a moral standing when people tell you that they are repulsed by sexuality. I honestly believe that you show a fertile man a picture of sex, they may respond to it consciously in a certain way, but I'd be very curious subconsciously how their brain might be reacting to seeing that image, because sex as an instinct.
Thank you. I was going to say that.
So what are your thoughts on that, Robinson? Because the only reason I disagree is because I think that that's a moral high ground that people chose at some point in their life, and it will even potentially take us into our subtopic of religion, because you have religious people like, let's say, the Mormon faith, who put this, this anti-militant, anti-this, anti-that, moral values on themselves for the reasons of the Bible and their religion, but I don't think that can possibly take away your humanity. And human nature is to want sex.
Yeah, to reproduce.
Right.
So
What do you
Yeah.
think, Robinson?
I think that you're absolutely right when you say it's instinctual. That's probably why the brain reacts differently to addiction than it does to, I'm sure if you showed someone food, they would probably have a more instinctual reaction than um,
A
they would
chair.
for, drugs or gambling. Have they done this with? Have they done this same kind of test with people that are addicted to food?
Right. I don't know.
That's my question.
Or what about showing food to somebody who, you show a delicious steak to a
Cheesecake.
vegetarian?
To a vegetarian.
Well, I
You
mean,
know?
they have done things where they do word associations,
Mhm.
and this is one. This is a study they do with sociopaths, and the way that they are able to see difference in brain function between just regular or ordinary person and someone who is you know uh, clinically diagnosed sociopathy is that their brain, the frontal lobe, would process the word love the same way it would process the word chair.
Really?
There would be no, yeah.
Huh.
There's a great
Okay.
book called The Sociopath Next Door, and it just talks about how people who literally do not have any conscience because
But
of the
what if
brain
he
brain
really
function.
loved his chair?
No, it was flat.
Just joking.
Yeah, jerk. No,
So
no.
so that reminds me of something. There was this one of those silly, I don't know, you call it a meme or something, but it was essentially a video.
Mhm.
And the video had it was directions in text form, and the directions were to follow these directions, and then it asked you like 3 or 4 simple math equations, and then so you would have to answer out loud, 5 + 3, 13 - 7, and then the last question was, what is the first? So think of a number
Mhm.
between 3 and 12, and
Mhm.
apparently like 93% of people chose the number 7. And if you chose something other than the number 7, then you're a sociopath. Now, obviously, it's a joke. It's meant to
Yeah.
be silly, but it is. I wonder how true it is because I did it at work the other day, and like 4 or 5 other people did it, um, and everybody chose the number 7. It was the most bizarre thing, and
I would have chosen 9.
except for me. And
I
so I
always choose
read it.
9.
I choose like 6 or something, and it says if you chose anything other than 7, you're a sociopath. And I'm like, oh shit! I really
It's a
wish I
1 in
hadn't.
12 chance. What the
I really wish I
hell?
hadn't done this test in front of my manager.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So that's interesting. That's and when we talked about and we were talking before the show about how episode 19, our alternative addictions episode, was one of the heaviest downloaded episodes as a podcast of recent of lately, and maybe the reason is because that's a topic that people are interested in. Maybe they don't only want to hear about drugs and alcohol. Maybe they want to hear about some of these other addictions as well.
Well, I think it's also, I mean, once you
Okay.
take the whole chemical point out of it, the whole chemical element, it really changes things because you can always say, okay, it's a chemical dependency, it's a chemical impact on the brain. But when you take that element out, it's like a whole different, I don't know, kind of a whole different ballgame.
But
And I think, yeah, people do want to hear that.
wouldn't you say that addiction in general, and maybe I'm overgeneralizing, but when you're addicted to something and it's not a substance abuse physical dependency, don't most addictive behaviors still trigger the same pleasure response and reward center of your brain? So wouldn't there still be, technically speaking, a chemical dependency that there's still the release of dopamine and
It's not an outside chemical though. In other
got it.
words, it's not that it's not that a chemical is being ingested or put into the body to alter it. This is stuff that's already within interacting.
Does that make it okay?
I don't think either one makes it any better than the other. I think it just makes it different and have to approach it a little bit differently.
Well, but wouldn't it be so if you could treat the symptoms of withdrawal, you would still need to treat the mental dependency on those built-in chemicals that your body is producing and releasing during the act of using whatever it is. So like a gambling addict is still triggering that reward center of the brain and the release of those chemicals, same as somebody who really enjoys getting high. So if you take the chemical out of the situation and they magically figure out a way to eliminate the physical withdrawal from chemical substances, I, for one, think that you would still have people abusing drugs, that particular drug, just to trigger that reward center of the brain. Am I wrong?
I don't think so. I mean, I think a whole ton of human behaviors are going to happen with that. But again, what really would be interesting is to look at different types of addictions, like gambling addiction, shopping, sex, all that other things, and see if it really is the same chemicals. See if it really is always dopamine. Maybe sometimes it's something else. There's a ton of neurochemicals that all go into that type of stuff.
Ton of different ones?
Yeah, it's not just always dopamine. I mean, it could easily be serotonin. It could easily be all of that crap.
Interesting.
I mean,
well,
so you never know.
So on the topic of porn addiction, let's call it. Is it real or not real? Porn addiction.
I don't think it's a question of real. I think it's just simply a question of how does it work.
Well, play along with me, Chaz. Robinson, porn addiction, real or not real?
I don't know. I mean, there is definitely a sex addiction, but porn addiction, yeah, I think so.
You think it's real?
Yeah.
Chaz?
Yeah, I just think it happens differently. In other words, it's the exact same problem with the exact same consequences.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you can't approach it the same way as you would another addiction.
So I'm inclined to agree with both of you. So we have a consensus. We are 3 for 3. And the reason I wanted to bring that up, the reason that I asked the question, real or not real, because if a self-proclaimed porn addict were to get a hold of this article from the Vladimir Putin website, what was it called? Russia Today?
RT.
Got it. The last thing I would want, and we've talked about this before on the show, is it is not up to a study or a list of, you are an alcoholic if you meet this criteria. It is up to the simple, most basic idea of addiction being what we've talked about 100 times on this show, is there a negative impact on your life? Is it something that you want to change and that you cannot stop on your own? And I think no matter what it is, whether it's watching too much pornography, smoking crack, or placing bets, if you meet that simple criteria where it's something you want to stop but you can't, something that is negatively impacting your life or the lives of people around you, that's an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
So don't read this article in Russia Today and somehow feel either bad about yourself, like, oh man, this is just a matter of willpower. This is all on me. I'm weak. I'm stupid. I'm worthless. I should be able to fix this on my own because it's not an addiction. But also, there's that addict tendency where somebody says, no. Opium is naturally occurring in the wild. You can get it from a plant. It's not bad for you. And then the heroin junkie says, well, shit, then I'm not going to stop using it because it's good for me. Right? So tell a whole bunch of people reading Russia Today that they don't have a porn addiction problem, and guess what? They're not going to be interested in fixing it anymore because that's how addicts think. It's an easy out, and I don't want people falling into that trap.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's sad that there are people who are, who do think that way. And
woefully addicted to pornography.
They could be just addicted to anything, but it still shows that there is different reactions in human responses to very different things. In other words, we process things very differently. And
go ahead. Sorry.
Go. No.
Something that we didn't touch on in the episode about alternative addictions, something that I think is pretty important and not discussed enough and is just running rampant in our society right now. Two things. Video game addiction.
What is it?
Video game addiction.
Okay.
And I know we talked about internet addiction a little bit, but what we didn't talk about specifically is like social media, right? Like this obsession, this compulsion to be wrapped up in everybody else's lives, that they're posting shit about themselves online, and you're constantly on all of the social media to check up on what's going on. Like it becomes this obsession. You have to know what's going on at all times. You comment on everybody's posts about everything, and it consumes your life. But then video game addiction is something that they are treating kids for these days, that it consumes all of their time. And the idea of, I mean, they miss family activities because they have this need to get on the computer or the video game console and play these video games for hours and hours and hours at a time. And I think that there are some really dark consequences to shitty parents that allow their kids to be consumed by this stuff.
Are not, and this is just like kind of stepping into this whole subject, so it's kind of like leading off into it, but are not those two types of things just forms of escapism?
Perhaps.
And I mean, and I was just thinking about as far as like the social media thing, it's like that addiction didn't exist until there was social media.
Sure, but
You
same
know?
thing could be that, like the addiction to crack cocaine didn't exist until the invention of crack cocaine.
Right, that's true for
But
anything.
but this was a whole new thing. It was more of a it would be like being addicted to gossip before there was like, internet or something. Something like
Sure.
that's where my brain is trying to go. It's trying to find like equivalent,
Well,
pre-internet equivalent to what this would have looked like.
Well, and I think that's why it fits into the category of internet addiction in general, because before the internet, you didn't have, 24/7 access to that
Yeah.
activity or information. Same with video game addiction. Before video games existed, like did people have an addiction to playing marbles? You know, I don't know.
Well, I have experienced loss of um, loss of days from being on Facebook,
Hmm.
and so I don't use it anymore. I had to kick it. But
Days?
I can watch porn. I can take it and leave it. It's like
Hmm.
whatever. I don't get
So
like obsessed in it
Hmm.
and watch it
what
nonstop for 3 days.
what was it about Facebook that just sucked you in like that?
I don't know. Like all the interesting video clips that you see and the comments that are people are making. It's stimulating thoughts and ideas and making me want to engage. I want to engage in people, and I think it's probably an addiction for people who are antisocial because it's an opportunity for them to engage now.
Hmm.
I think that's very well said. I agree. Especially, let's say you live a relatively isolated life for some reason. You live in a small town, but
Or a dungeon.
or in a dungeon somewhere. You were
Hmm.
kidnapped at age 13 by a guy in a white van, and he's kept you locked up in his basement for the last 15 years.
And you have access to Facebook? What the hell?
Well, he doesn't know you have access. I mean, you jerry-rigged the wires from the phone jack outlet. And you
And you
found
haven't called for help, you
you
dipshit?
you found a 56K modem lying in a corner somewhere of that basement. You
And you're
connected to
checking your
America
Facebook.
Online on a 286 computer that you found plugged into the generator when he goes to sleep at night.
It's possible, Ken.
Yeah, that's a very realistic story.
Quite.
Yeah. So interesting. Well, and so I mean, I think Robinson, you speak to the fact that if you, of all the people in the world, you are not an antisocial person. You are a very social person. You have friends and acquaintances, and you go out, you do things, and you've always been involved in the community, in different communities, and face-to-face interaction is important to you. Um, for it to kind of grab you by the short and curlies like it did to the point where you had to make the conscious decision to step away from it. Imagine somebody that doesn't have the wherewithal, or the self-awareness to say, wow, this is consuming my life, where they could, and they have access to, a good smartphone, and they have a computer, and they have Wi-Fi at work, and they have 24/7 access to this. And I mean, there are people that I always find it interesting when I see comments on Facebook from people that I know have like regular jobs, and it's 4 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and I see 12 different postings of comments that they've commented on at 4 a.m. That's probably them foregoing sleep because they are too deep into the social media to go to bed.
Or, like me, when I wake up at that hour and the first thing I do is check my social media and I get that whole thing in at that moment, at that time during the day, and then I check it later on after I get off work.
Perhaps.
I mean, that's why mine are always like, I just pick it up usually, go through it, answer, done.
Well, the worst thing in my mind, and I laugh at Rachel for this all the time, is she'll tell me I tend to go to sleep hours after her. We talked earlier about this magical ability that she has to tuck herself into bed and fall asleep within 38 seconds. I am not that fortunate, and it takes me hours to fall asleep at night. So it is very rare that I am actually sleeping before 1 o'clock in the morning, even if I work the next day. So I've countless times she's awakened from her sleep for whatever reason, and she'll complain that she's having trouble sleeping. But the first thing she does when she wakes up from sleep is pick up her iPhone and look at Facebook. And it's like, well, yeah, when you have, a bright white light shining in your face away from your eyeballs, it's going to be a little bit difficult to go back to sleep. Yeah, I don't know. So the other topic that we wanted to discuss this evening, and maybe we can prime it and then take a break and then come back and discuss it, was something that Robinson brought up. You want to share with us your idea, Robinson?
The addiction of religion.
The addiction of or the addiction to?
Well, the addiction to religion as an alternative. I've seen it not common, but I've seen people become addicted to religion as an alternative to whatever they were addicted to before.
So substituting an addiction for religion.
Yes, and then they become strung out on that.
Strung out on religion, bro.
Yeah, and they can't stop talking about it and preaching it. That's pretty sad.
It is sad, and the saddest part, I think, is that they see it as this very positive, and beneficial thing that very well could be the case, right? It can be very positive for some people. It can bring, somebody that maybe didn't live a very good moral life to being a better person or whatever. I mean, I don't knock religion as a whole. I personally am not an organized religion fan for lots of reasons. Mostly the double standards and hypocrisy. Those are the main reasons that I have against organized religion. But it can definitely do good for people. I, for one, have my own belief system that works for me, and I don't subscribe to... I don't like the idea of somebody else telling me what my morals and values should be. I feel like I get to choose those. Now, for somebody who might have been completely lost, I think religion can be a good thing for some people. But I also see people who, even maybe they weren't addicted, and it has nothing to do with a recovery program gone too far, but found religion at some point in their life and became addicted to it. And I'd love to talk about that when we get back. What do you say, gentlemen?
Sounds good.
Good.
Cool. So you're listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast on Radio Valencia, 87.9 FM on your radio dial in the Bay Area of California. We are remote broadcasting to you live from Oakland, California, Phoenix, and Tempe, Arizona, where it is a balmy 99 degrees. We will be back after a short musical interlude where we're going to talk about the addiction of religion on the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can catch us every Saturday night, Sunday morning from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. Pacific time. This is a little tune, an old school tune from the same band we always play, and this is called Too Much, Too Late. Enjoy!
Shake it to me, baby. I know it's not your thing to put me out when we're thirsty, but you know you're making my ears ring. So tell me what have you got down up there? No, I really couldn't guess. She laid down like heaven upon my soul. I thought I confess. Slow down, need to not this time. Step back, it's alright, we'll try again. Hurts too much this time, I need to go. Too much, too. Just break it to me, baby. My walls are closing in. I need to know, should I stay and suffer or get out and save myself? You look to drive me insane now, honey. Now I know you're gonna try. I will not be the one that you need, okay? Well, bye-bye. No, slow down, it's not this time. Step back, it's alright, we'll try again. Turn to my this time, I need to go. I know it's not your thing to put me out when we're first meet, but you know you're driving me insane. Feel You drive me insane now, honey. Now I know you're trying so hard. I won't let you on. I will not go goodbye. Slow down, it's not this time. Step back, it's alright, we'll try again. Hurts too much this time, I need to go. See you,
Welcome back to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. You are listening to Radio Valencia and me with a mouthful of food. So, hope you enjoyed that little number. Old song, 2003, believe it or not, off the self-titled debut record from a little band from Southern California called Arbor Circle. Now you might wonder, why, oh why, do you only play songs from the band called Arbor Circle? And I'll tell you why. Number one, because maybe somebody will listen to it and they'll like it and they'll offer me $1 million to be a professional recording artist. That's number one. Number two is because we don't know that we legally have the right to play music that we don't own. And so since I own the Arbor Circle catalog, that is why I play the Arbor Circle catalog for you. We also need a couple of minutes during the show to, well, let's just say, sitting here for 2 hours sipping on a Polar Pop can sometimes beget the need to use the facilities. Now, we can't use the facilities while we are on the air. I think the FCC has rules about that. So, we take a musical interlude, we play a song that we own, and that's our excuse. So, we hope that you enjoy the musical selections from week to week, and if you don't, I'm sure you won't email us about it anyway. Right?
Right.
Right. Because they don't complain about anything. They don't tell us, we don't get positive recognition. We don't get negative feedback. So we just keep rolling with the punches. Although, I do enjoy that one comment on that one YouTube video from the live stream.
That was a quite well written, comment. It was a very, very well thought out argument.
Absolutely, it was what I expect from the internet these days.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the internet called us fags.
I think that's actually I don't know.
That's an internet thing. When the internet calls you a fag, you have truly arrived.
You have arrived.
Digital world scene.
When you get your first YouTube thumbs down and somebody calls you a fag, you have a real podcast.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You are a true presence on the internet.
That's right. The internet is a very strange place.
Do you ever watch the Chappelle Show, where he did a skit about what it would be like if the internet was a real place?
On the Chappelle Show?
Yeah, there was a skit, and it was like a shopping mall. And
I don't remember this.
Oh my God, it's a great sketch. It is
really, because I consider myself a Chappelle Show fanatic. I mean, we used to watch. We had the DVDs of all 3 seasons, and we would watch them regularly. Why don't I remember this sketch?
Yeah, I mean, if you ever look it up, it's pretty hilarious.
And
it's
this
really
was
hilarious.
10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's funny if it's still relevant today.
I think it is. I mean, it's actually. I mean, I think it's worse today. I think it's
Yeah.
far worse.
Find it. We're gonna find it.
Yeah.
So I don't know where Robinson went.
Don't know. I was thinking about the topic though, so.
Good. So was I. Chappelle's show.
Sorry, I forgot to turn my mic.
Internet real place. Here we go. Dave Chappelle. If the internet was a real place.
Yes.
5 seconds doesn't seem long enough.
No.
Yeah. If Google was a guy. That's a video.
I've seen that. I think I've seen that one.
And one of my favorite sketches was the Prince one where he played basketball and made them pancakes.
Yes.
I also really enjoyed the very short sketch of Samuel Jackson beer. That was a good one.
Yeah.
But I don't remember if the internet was a real place one. And this video is only 5 seconds long. Let's see what it is.
Hey, brother, I'm a doctor. You're a doctor. Fucking right, I'm a.
That's all it was. And then it just ended. And that tiny...
That was it. It was like people just running up to him, talking to him, like, what the hell?
I think I remember now.
Yeah, Ron
But that's where the
Jeremy
video
was in
ended.
it.
And that video has 26,000 views. All 5 seconds of it. I'm Wayne Brady, bitch. Yeah, fun times. Tyrone Biggums, the crack addict. I don't know if you know this about me, Joe Rogan. I smoke rocks. Oh, man. So, the addiction to religion. Bill Maher, very famously, has nothing nice to say about religion. We fight wars over religious disagreements. I mean, if we really want to boil it down, our favorite foe, ISIS and Al Qaeda, they kill people over their religion, and yet we call them, fundamentalists, right, or extremists. Maybe they're just addicts. Maybe we just need to 12-step the shit out of some ISIS.
No, then they would become 12-step fanatics.
That's all right. At least
And
12-steppers don't blow shit up. Last time I went to an AA meeting, I didn't have to check under my car for a bomb.
Well,
And
I'm glad.
12-steppers, you don't have to pray 5 times a day in AA. Just once or twice. When I wake up in the morning, you're supposed to pray for a day without alcohol or drugs, and when you go to bed at night, you're supposed to thank God that you didn't use your drug today. And I'm not mocking it. I'm not. I just think it's interesting that there has to be rules to your sobriety, or you're doing it wrong, apparently. To me, it's more like, don't be an asshole. Don't be an idiot. Remember how shitty your life was when you were using, and don't be an asshole. Those are the 4 rules to sobriety.
4 rules.
Yeah. So,
Well,
religion. Go.
all right, cool.
No. Was that what you were about to talk about?
Yes.
Because if it
yes.
wasn't, by all means.
No, I'm going into it. As far as like substituting one addiction for another, and that other being religion, I've always noticed these like these rock stars and everything else, like the dude from Korn, I think it was, or whatever band the guy was from, where suddenly he had this huge turnaround, he's born again, and all this other shit, and just left
Was it the
everything
bass
behind.
player from Korn?
I believe so. It was like
All right.
Monkey or Head or one of those two. Yeah, seriously.
Monkey Head.
Monkey or Head.
I've seen that at the zoo before. The parents were mortified.
But anyway, the story that people like that are always saying is that like they were looking for something. They were trying to fill this hole in their life with drugs and sex and women and all this other crap. And then they find God and suddenly, boom, that's it. It's like, to me, what that type of stuff, what that shows is that some people, at least, have some kind of lack of something, a lack of meaning, and are looking for it elsewhere. And as soon as they find it in religion, that's what they take. I mean, so really, it could be anything, but they just found religion. That's what really clicked with them. And so suddenly now that becomes the socially acceptable, it's not going to land me in jail or the hospital type of whole, thing that will fill that gaping void in my life of meaninglessness.
Well, and to your point, religion is something that socially it is unacceptable to criticize somebody's faith.
Oh, yes.
Even if their faith is completely over the top, right? So, the rock star who redecorates their house from, like demons and pentagrams to, giant golden crucifix and statues of Jesus. You can't criticize them for being religious. Like, it's just not something that we do as a society. Or I think even as a species, like, we tend to want to be respectful of other people's religious beliefs. Even if they've taken it to the extreme with, the Islamic faith and the extremists aside.
Yeah, they don't really give a damn about not criticizing.
Well, and we criticize the unfortunate side of that, though, is that we criticize the Muslim faith as a whole because of this very small subset of fuckfaces, that's the technical term, who take it to the next level and kill people, right? But and I think that's very sad, to be honest with you, that now if you are Muslim, you get lumped in with the murderous, what did I call them? Fuckfaces?
Fuckfaces?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that bothers me, right? Just like, to me, when somebody tells me unprovoked and I haven't asked that they're a Christian, I kind of cringe a little bit because what pops into my mind is, Pat Robertson and televangelists and hypocrisy, and we live in a country where religion and government shouldn't be intertwined, and yet it still is, to a certain degree. All this nonsense recently about the Confederate flag being taken down in southern states, and the people that are pro-Confederate flag, they always bring Christianity up, as part of the reason they defend flying this, symbol of racism and bigotry. That, like,
it's the flag of a terrorist organization that
right,
killed more Americans in history than
treasonous traitors who fought against the United States on our own land
to destroy us.
Like, but we don't want to forget our heritage. It's like, no, you do want to forget that side of your heritage. Trust me. That'd be like the Nazis they were there was somebody, I think it was just on the Jon Stewart show, saying that that would be like wanting to wear a swastika on your vest because you really liked the fact that the Nazis were very anti-smoking. So you want to remember that part of your heritage. Well, my grandfather was a Nazi, and so I wear this swastika on my vest because I really believed in their anti-smoking campaign. It's like, wait, but you forget about all the murdering. Don't support the Nazis, just they don't support the Confederate flag. They fought a war because they wanted to own humans. Christ almighty. All right.
Yeah.
Tangent over. So substitution addiction is something that we've talked about plenty of times on this show, where you will substitute your X addiction with an alcohol addiction, or you'll substitute your alcoholism with shopping,
Caffeine.
or right, even like the less harmful stuff. Like, I know for a fact that when I got sober, donuts and Diet Dr. Pepper became a much more significant part of my life. And I joked with friends in the program because shortly after I got sober, I was being nudged very violently to quit smoking cigarettes. And I didn't understand where this was coming from. I just stopped using drugs. I stopped drinking. These were things that were going to kill me. These were things that were ruining my life. And I smoked cigarettes. And now I'm being pushed very hard to quit smoking. And the two were being equated with one another. I was being judged for smoking cigarettes in the same way that I was being judged for drinking heavily and using drugs. And it was mind-boggling to me that these two things were being put in the same category in a relatively short distance from one another. Well, you've been sober for a year. Now you need to quit smoking because that's going to kill you too. It's like, well, hold on a second. So I would joke with some of my AA friends and say, like, well, what the fuck? What's next? I quit smoking and then what? Then I have to give up Diet Dr. Pepper and donuts? Like, where does it end? So substitution on its face, when we're substituting one harmful thing for another harmful thing, I agree. Not good. But substitution in other less dramatic ways, like in my case, caffeine and sweets, it is what it is, and I'm not going to, like, I don't know, I guess I just don't understand. Like, they tell you, if you're in a recovery program, do not try to quit smoking within the first couple of years of your sobriety, because it could literally kick you off the wagon and you could start using again, because you end up with a very big case of the fuckets.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol, they end up becoming an association with each other. Sure. And if you're not drinking, but then you start smoking again, then you're going to automatically feel inclined to smoke and drink. And I know when I drink a beer, I want to smoke a cigarette, and when I smoke a cigarette, I don't always want a beer, but I just feel like they go together. But I think that's why they don't want you to quit smoking. They want you to keep smoking. And it is hard on your body. It's really hard on your body to quit smoking and quit drinking at the same time.
Right. Well, and psychologically, if you try to quit smoking and you fail, now all of a sudden you have failed in general. And that's where that case of the fuckets comes from. Like, well, I've failed quitting smoking, so fuck it.
I might as well drink too.
Exactly. So religion, though, is, to me, a very cunning negative thing in some people's lives. And it gets justified as being this positive, love-filled, moral path that gets overused and creates justification for passing judgment on people and, you know, writing people off in your life or thinking that you're better than other people. And when it comes to a drug addict or an alcoholic, falling into that mindset can be a very slippery slope. So where
Yes.
does religion addiction stem from?
I think it stems kind of from just our innate desire, like a search for meaning.
Okay.
You know, it's I guess people, you know, I don't know if people try to find meaning through drugs or something, but from what these folks, you know, these celebrities who've had these, you know, life turnaround event things, from what they say, that's what it sounds like to me, is that they were trying to search for meaning in, quote, all the wrong places, and suddenly they found one that really clicked with them, and boom, it's God and all this stuff. I mean, it's like, it's not that all that other stuff was bad, it's just that you were looking in the wrong place, or that you would never have been happy anyway. You're just always going to be searching and always going to be looking for something that, you know, what happens if maybe someday your religion doesn't have the answers that you're looking for? You know, it doesn't have everything you're looking for.
I think a lot of the reasons that religion is a better alternatives because there's so much social acceptance and people around you that are constantly they're going to call you. They're going to call you at home. They're going to invite you to events. They're going to make you feel fulfilled. They're going to help you, you know, do more things and stay more active and distracted. And I think that's a major key.
That's a good point, the whole distraction thing.
Do you?
Yeah.
So part of me, and maybe this is just the cynic in me, but I also look at religion. Religion potentially gives you an out. You can use religion as a means for excusing things as well, right? That you start quoting Bible verses about forgiveness and getting into heaven and doing God's work and being one of God's children, and all of a sudden responsibility for certain things can fall off your shoulders, right? You start justifying the actions that you took in your life while you were addicted to PCP and how it was God's will that you used to, you know, beat on your wife, and you learned from that, and now all that responsibility goes away, and you expect people to forgive you and accept you for this new person that you've become, and they should forget the horrible piece of shit that you used to be. And I think that drives me crazy, because the horrible piece of shit that you used to be is still part of who you are. And if you've truly grown and learned from the mistakes that you've made in your life, great. But if you just find this new path to get on, you know, it's kind of like you're driving down the street, you crash your car into another car, and then you hop out of your car and you see a bicycle. You get on the bicycle and you start riding on the sidewalk, and you're like, oh, nope, I've been on this bicycle the whole time. What are you talking about? You know, it feels like the way that certain people, not all people, but certain people can excuse the actions and behaviors of their past by forcing people to only look at them through the lens of this newfound, religion and
Well,
religiousness.
and that's basically the whole premise of, and here I'll go, aiming directly kind of. That's kind of the whole premise of current modern, like, American Christianity. The whole idea of I've been saved and born again, and aren't I wonderful, and aren't I everything, and I can. Honestly, I mean, I've heard people saying shit like they're forgiven, so they can essentially go out and do whatever the heck they want.
Right.
Because they've been saved by God's grace will save them, not through anything they do or anything they, any particular virtue they have or any of that. God's grace will save them, so they can go and do whatever the heck they want. And
Right.
Those people tend to be the biggest assholes in the world.
Yep. Well, even you look at, the mafia and organized crime, a lot of those guys died peacefully because they were religious, and if they confessed their sins to a priest on their deathbed, all would be forgiven.
All the guys they whacked.
Right.
And that's Catholicism for you.
Yep.
As long as you show up for your service Sunday and eat that little wafer and
pay your tithings,
then you're in. No matter what you do, as long as you do those things.
Well, heck, for most Protestant Christianity, you just check the Jesus box.
Amen. So, how does somebody determine between strong faith and being a good Muslim, Christian, Jew, and being addicted to their religion of choice? How do you make the distinction? Because with what we're saying, somebody who chooses to be, a minister or a pastor or a rabbi or a priest, the religion consumes their lives. Would they be addicted to the religion? Probably not, right?
No.
So where do you make the distinction? How do you make the distinction?
I don't know.
I can probably give an idea.
Please.
And this actually goes. This is like going back to ancient times. When Buddhism first came to China, it was heavily persecuted. It was the Confucians just absolutely hated what it did.
Buddhism.
It hated that other stuff.
Buddhism, right?
Yeah.
That's the belief in ghosts. Right?
Shut up, Mike. No, Buddhism, like, the regular, what we think of as Buddhism. But anyway, it was very persecuted, and the reason it was persecuted is because they wanted the young men to leave their families and their responsibilities and everything behind them and go live in a monastery and pray and meditate forever. So the traditional Confucian society saw it as it would undermine their entire society. It would, disrupt the family. It would destroy all this other shit, And now you've got Buddhism all throughout China so much, but that's how it was originally seen when it first got there, was that it was going to consume it was going to take an entire generation of young men away from their family, and it was going to destroy everything. So, in a sense, if you look at it in that kind of extreme way, where it's going to take someone out of the world and it's going to put them into somewhere else where that's going to be just their whole life. Well, for that person, I mean, that's okay, I guess. But when you look at it as kind of a society, you can see where they got that idea.
So, does it have to be unnatural? In order for it to be religiousness in a negative sense,
Religiosity.
Religiosity as a negative, as an over the top, what we would, just for the sake of conversation, refer to as an addiction. Because when we classify something as an addiction, right, we talk about negative consequences. We talk about disrupting your life. Does that tend to fall on the converted more so than the long-standing religious person who maybe later in life gets more involved and is now heavily involved in the church? Or,
well, looking at it from a more like extreme sense, think about cults. Think about how many people have been down and out in their lives and addicted and all that other stuff and wound up on some compound in the middle of nowhere. Like, that's pretty much what Jonestown was. It was a lot of folks from the inner cities and who were, down and out on their luck and everything, and then found a way, basically found their way to something else that gave them meaning in their lives. And in a sense, if you think about how joining a cult can have harmful okay. But if you think about the way that, joining a cult can have harmful consequences on a person's life, I mean, that can easily be seen as just as harmful as anything from an addiction. Right? Or not?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I mean, I would have to see it, because again, if it's going to save a person's life, I guess, if they're going to go off and join a cult and it's going to save them, as far as, not winding up dead in a gutter, then maybe it's, the best thing for them. But for a lot of people, it's not always, going to have the best consequence. It's not always going to be the best outcome.
Yeah. Well, I'm reminded a lot of just someone who was a really funny person. She was just always cracking everybody up, but she was also always drunk. And when she finally got into rehab, she wasn't funny anymore. She was sober, and she wasn't funny, and she wasn't interesting, and all she wanted to talk about was God. And how her life is wonderful, and how she has God in her life. And it was just like, oh God, just to have a fucking shot of something.
How her life was wonderful because of God. That's the part that makes me crazy. Is now in recovery they talk about your ego a lot, right? And how we probably didn't get sober soon enough because our ego got in the way of admitting to ourselves and to others that we had a problem for a long time. But then you get people like this person who want to give all the credit to Jesus for them getting sober and don't take any of the credit for the hard work that they had to do to get to where they were at.
Yeah.
And it's all about God and Jesus and their religion.
Well, here's something kind of as far as the whole ego thing goes. I think I was saying, it was because my ego got in the way, or blame. To me, that's an excuse. To me, it's like my ego got in the way of my sobriety. In other words, you're still not taking full responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
It's like Geraldine saying, "The devil made me do it."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The
But
devil
the
made me
devil
do
being an external power, whereas your ego is a part of your consciousness.
it.
But it's still not taking full responsibility.
Yeah, I actually think that they're both interchangeable. Your ego is
Mhm.
your id, which is a force outside of you that controls you, that lives within you, whatever. I don't know how you want to put it, but it's, I don't know. It's a good question. It's an interesting subject. I want to do some more research on it.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
But I think because we're winding down the show, got 10 minutes remaining.
Mm-hmm.
I think the point that we've been trying to make all night is that spirituality and religion are two different things, in my opinion. Religion is the organized following of teachings from typically a book
About a
written by
man.
written by a man or by men, by human beings, that people will follow word for word, even though it has been translated and retranslated dozens, if not hundreds of times. And an addict, somebody who is coming out of the fog of addiction, can sometimes be, easily influenced. And like Chaz mentioned earlier, this concept of filling a void with drugs and alcohol or bad behavior, and then deciding that when you got rid of those drugs and alcohol and bad behavior, that void existed again, and having to refill that void with something else, I think is missing the point. Because the void was exacerbated, was amplified by the drug and alcohol abuse. And when you remove the bad behavior, the drugs, the alcohol, the destruction, I think that you yourself can and should be able to fill that void. And you can fill it naturally and in a very healthy, meaningful way. And jumping headfirst into an organized religion that you had absolutely nothing to do with for most of your life until you got sober can be very damaging to relationships with people, and could potentially put you in a position where, similar to I got sober for my kids or I got sober for my wife, and if those kids disown you or that wife leaves you, you have lost your reason for being sober. If that religion lets you down, you could potentially be in the exact same situation.
Right.
Well, I've always thought that, the whole idea of a void needing to be filled is, it's the idea of the void.
I don't think it. I think it starts out as an escape.
Okay.
Mhm.
An escape. There used to be this like bumper sticker back in the 70s that said, reality is for people who can't handle drugs, because there was a slogan that was drugs are for people who can't handle reality, and it's true for both of them. But I think a lot of people just found that society is just too much. There's too much weird shit going on, and we have lost control, and we just don't want to deal with stuff. And the easiest way to do that is to just get drunk or get high and go into a different place. Okay? So filling that void with reality is probably the best thing you can do. I think that's what you're doing, Mike. You're filling your void with reality. You're not escaping anymore. You're just dealing with shit. And people just need to grow up and deal with shit and say, hey, you know what? This is it. This is life. Either, either go somewhere else and go to another existence, or deal with your shit. But you can't just you can't check out. It's just not, it doesn't work. As soon as you get sober, reality is there again.
Absolutely.
And you can't stay drunk forever unless you're Chloe.
There's a great statement. I forget who said it, but reality is that which remains even after you stop believing in it.
Ah, beautiful.
I forget who said that, but it's someone like Arthur C. Clarke or some shit like that. But to me, the whole thing is that I just don't even believe in a void. In other words, it's like there is no thing that must be filled by something else. And to me, that allows me to just deal with reality. That way, I don't know. That's what works for me, at least. That's kind of what has kept me, at least, moderately sane. From having to constantly search for meaning and everything. I just figured eventually that, you know what? Life doesn't have to have meaning in order to be worth living.
Nice.
And shit happens.
Well,
that it does too.
And to be honest, I look at my old life, right? And I say it that way almost tongue in cheek, because it's not my old life. That was my life. That was the life that I led. Right. That's part of who I am. And it's part of who I became as well. So the idea that you're going to start attending a church and become religious, and that's now that makes you a better person, that's, I think, not only incorrect, but also completely disingenuous. Because I wasn't a bad person while I was using drugs and alcohol. And I say that because I believe that.
You were just you were a disengaged person.
I was disengaged from my own existence. And it took me by surprise. It wasn't that I had a bad life. It wasn't that I was miserable with the decisions that I had made and where I found myself in life or anything like that. And so if you're feeling that way and thinking that diving headfirst into the deep end of a religious organization is somehow going to fix that or change that, I think you're simply mistaken. And I think that a rude awakening will come. It may work for a while, but if that's not who you really are, and you're trying to force a square peg into a round hole, that's why it looks and feels so foreign and disingenuous for the rock star corn bass player.
Yeah. To me, it's almost like saying, instead of taking drugs, I'm just going to be an idiot.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is that it's kind of like those. it's the same thing for those people who think that there has to be a God and they have to believe in God and everything in order for people to not run around, rape and murder and kill everything. You know, it's all
Bullshit.
that their entire morality is based on the idea that there's a God. It's same thing for folks like this who their whole entire sobriety depends on it. And to me, honestly, both those type of folks who so much of their reality and so much of their sanity and so much of what keeps them from killing other people hinges on the idea that there is a God, I honestly, sincerely hope that they never lose faith.
Well, I,
Because, oh my God.
right, like that. I'm scared to death of those people. Then,
Yes.
if that's all that's keeping them from, raping our children and murdering us in our sleep, then man, humanity is pretty.
I think that's
effed up
why it
if
was
that's the
invented in the
case.
first place.
Well, not to knock on any one particular religion more than the other, but the whole idea in the Muslim faith that men can't control themselves around women if women show them their kneecaps.
Their ankles.
That's the same thing. And it's banana sandwiches. That's what it is. And I couldn't disagree with it more. I think that we need to give ourselves more credit as a species, truthfully. Because I think you can be sober and live a good life without having to be a religious fanatic. And you can be religious without being a fanatic. And you can also potentially turn your back on religion and not become a murderous rapist.
And I mean, it's the same thing, like, okay.
No, sorry, keep
I'll hold
talking.
that thought for
It's the
next
bumper
week.
music. You can.
I was
still
just going to
talk through
say,
the
it's
bumper
like,
music.
I mean, for the majority of Christians and for the majority of Muslims, they can all control themselves. They're all normal human beings, but it's that very small subset whose entire sanity relies on not seeing an ankle, and thinking that God and everything else is in the heavens, and it's keeping them from taking drugs and killing people.
And on that note, you've been listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast on RadioValencia.fm and all around the world. We'd like to thank you for joining us this evening. You can catch us every Saturday night, Sunday morning from midnight to 2 a.m. Pacific time, where we will be here, and you should be too. And if you or yours is considering getting sober, I highly recommend it. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Good night.
See you next week.
Yeah.